Hello and welcome back to the Weighted Native Chronicles. Have you ever wondered whether you can cook wild game in an air fryer? Let's say you have a nice moose steak like this one here. This is a backstrap, or if you have elk or deer and you want a quick meal and something simple to do. Even as a guy, that doesn't have a whole lot of experience with cooking, can you take a steak like this and cook it up real nice using just an air fryer? The answer is yes, but you do have to follow a couple of very important principles when you're doing so, because it's a little different than doing it in an oven. So what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to show you how to make a fantastic steak using just an air fryer. And this is something that anybody can do because I'm no skilled person in the kitchen. My wife usually does this stuff, but she does like the way I do steaks, so that's a good thing, right? Now, the first thing to keep in mind is with an air fryer, give you an idea of what an air fryer is if you don't have one. It's basically a convection oven, a small portable convection oven, something that doesn't take up a whole lot of counter space, so a lot of people are going with this. And it's basically like a convection oven that you can buy for a large oven. That it heats up the air and it circulates that air around the food, so it cooks it from all sides. So that's what we're going to use for this. It's more for small meals, depending on the size of the basket you have in your air fryer. The second principle to keep in mind is that when it comes to cooking steaks, the normal procedure is to take the steak out and let it bring itself to room temperature before you start cooking it. In an air fryer, it's actually the exact opposite. What you want to do with an air fryer is you want to have that steak in the fridge and you want it to be cold when you take it out. Because an air fryer cooks a little bit slower, you want to be able to get that crust, that nice tasty crust, you know what I mean, on the top of the steak. But in order to do that, you have to have the steak cold. So that way it has time to create that crust on the top of the meat without overcooking the inside of it. So you start off with the meat cold. Pretty simple, right? That crust is really the good part of it. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take this package here that my wife so nicely wrapped up for me. Here's our back strap. I'm going to take this, set this aside here, and we're going to cut off a nice little steak. Let's take this piece here. There's one. That looks like a nice steak. How thick should we make it? I'd say at least that thick. One thing about wild meat is you don't want to overcook it, right? Okay, so here we have our steak. It's sitting like so. And I'll take this and I'll set this aside. Well, we'll just put it on the side here. Okay, I'm going to take this steak now. Before I started, I should have mentioned that one thing I want you to have too is a meat thermometer. These things are really handy. That's going to prove to be very important in this process. You don't have to guess so much. Meat thermometers cost very little. You really should get one if you haven't got one already. Now, you might notice, by the way, that I'm not doing this in a typical kitchen setting because it's just too crowded in the kitchen. So I've just set up our cutting board that we use normally for butchering animals, and I just put it on the coffee table. So that's, if it doesn't look like a standard kitchen here, that's because it isn't. Okay, here's a very important step here. I'm going to take some of this butter, and I don't mean just a little, I mean lots. The steak has a kind of a seam on it, so it's not so easy for spreading. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pile it on there like so. I'm going to try to spread it out, but really having too much butter is not an issue. You want lots, want it all over everywhere. Okay, so there we have our butter on it. And why do we have that butter? Well, the reason is steak goes under what's it called, a Maillard process when you're cooking it. and that causes the fats, the proteins, and sugars in the meat to caramelize, I think is what you would call it, and it creates that tasty crust on top of the meat. So now that I have that butter on there, I'm going to put some salt to taste. I like lots of salt. We're only going to do this on one side. Okay, is that enough salt? I'm not sure, I always put a little more on. Okay, so now we have ourselves a steak that's ready to be cooked. Shall we take a look at this oven now? And the oven, I'm going to show you, it has a basket, like so. I'm going to take this grill out of it. I'm going to take the steak, and I'm going to put it in the bottom of this basket. Now, this basket has a little elevated bottom to it, which is a really good thing. So if you're getting an air fryer, you want to have that, because that lets the air, the hot air, circulate all around the meat. Okay, so I'm going to take this meat, put it in there. I could easily cook 2 of these pieces in this air fryer in this size of basket, but for today we're just going to do 1. So I'm going to take this and put it back in the air fryer. I'm going to turn it on and select the top basket, select air fry. Oh, wrong button there, air fry. Then I'm going to select temperature. I'm going to bump it up to 400, and maybe I'll just, then let's set the time, and really the time could be, I'm expecting 9 minutes, but I'm going to check it before that time. Now that I've done that, just tell her to go, and we'll wait for 6 or 7 minutes, and by then it won't be done perfectly yet, but better to be safe than sorry. And as I said before, it doesn't involve any flipping of the meat. We're just going to put it on its one side. Okay, I've hit 6 minutes. I started with 9 minutes and ran it down to 3 minutes, so that should be 6. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to check the temperature of this meat. Look at that inside there, eh? Isn't that nice? Got this meat temperature gauge. What does that say? 101, 109, 113, 114. Okay, so 118. Yeah, I think we could use a little more cooking on this. So I'm just going to let it continue now. I found that with this meat, it seems to be 145 degrees around there, that it cooks good. Like, it's still very red inside. So this may be different from what you're used to when you cook beef steaks and stuff like that. Because I've cooked beef steaks before too, and right around 130, 135 is about right. So, don't be blocked in by any hard and fast rules. Just go by experience and you'll get better at this. But I know from experience that this kind of backstrap meat at 145, it's not overcooked. In fact, it could go a little bit higher. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, we've hit the 9-minute mark. So let's take this thing out. Look at that, eh? Nice and caramelized on the top. This is going to be delicious. Just a little steak. I could have easily cooked a couple of steaks in there, right? Okay, let's take this thing out. Now we have the steak out, and the reason for the butter is this. It catches in the bottom. Just pour that all over the steak. Really adds to the flavor. And now's the time to put a bit of pepper on it for seasoning. The reason, as I mentioned before, for not putting the pepper on right away was because you don't want the pepper to just burn on top of the steak. So this is a pretty thick piece. Let's see how she looks. Well, how about that? Hey, is that a steak or is that a steak? That is a steak. Let's just cut off a little piece here. Perfection. So that was 9 minutes for a steak that thick. And it's nice and seared on the outside. And not overcooked on the inside. And lots of flavor. Just dip it in that butter. It's got a combination of the juices from the meat as well, built in there. You know, wild meat tends to be very lean, so don't have to worry about getting too much in there. That fat really helps. And this is genuinely good. Like, I'm not just making this up for the camera. And I'm no fancy cook, so you can do this too. I mean, how simple can it get, right? Nothing better than getting an animal yourself in the bush, hauling it out, quartering it, doing the butchering yourself, which many of us do. I know that's what we do. In our early days, we used to bring it to a butcher, but eventually we said, no, we can do this stuff ourselves. And you wind up with your meat, you wrap your meat, put it in the freezer, and you're eating for a whole year with a moose, right? And then when you cook it, you just remember everything about the hunt and what it took to get them out and stuff like that. It's memories mixed in. It's in the case of myself, it's myself and my wife. So we both hunt, we both enjoy wild game. She's indigenous, so this is how she was brought up too. And there's something about moose meat, and Native people will tell you that too. It's the best meat there is. It's not identical to beef, but that's why it's so good. It's actually better. So I hope a video like this helps you get more out of the meat in your freezer that you harvest. It's easy to do. It's very tasty. And it's so easy to do, even a guy like me can do it. So from the Way to Native Chronicles, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have some comments or have some questions, by all means put them down in the comments. And, you know, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. That really helps us out so we can keep on producing more content like this. Catch you next time. I got some eating to do. Did you like this video? If you did, I think you're gonna like this one right over here. So check it out. And I appreciate your subscribing if you haven't done so already. Remember to do that while you're watching this next video. Click like, it all helps us out for this channel. Catch you next time.